if you can actually take to heart what we are going to be talking about in this episode and really apply it to your life, you can go from feeling like life is in control of you and external circumstances are completely controlling you to feeling so empowered and in control of your life.
Most of us think that we do not have power over our thoughts. And while we might have heard that maybe come through in our feeds, how many of us are actually applying that? And how many of us are actually taking that awareness of strategic thinking, controlling our thoughts, to actually making impactful 1% improvements that add up every single day? The research shows that it's so few of us. Don't let this be you.
Hey Evolvers, what is going on? It's Bianca.
Welcome back, Evolvers. It's Emilia.
A client of mine from back in the day, from the beginning, came back and started working with me again, and I'm going to send this episode to her, so shout out to you. I'm so grateful we're working together again. Obviously, I'm going to keep confidentiality and not name names, but of course, you know who you are. Mm-hmm. And she actually started working with me from a referral from another client that I had. And shout out to you. Appreciate you. And she and I started working together back in the day when I had first started getting into lifestyle coaching. That's what I called it, lifestyle coaching. Way, way, way back in the day when we first started the Why Power podcast. And she reached out to me on Instagram, and I didn't know who this person was, but she reached out and she's like, hey, I've been following you on social media. You're so inspirational, blah, 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 blah. I would love to work with you. Or I would love to hear more about like what working with you would entail. So I'm like, of course, let's get on a free call. So I get on a call with her and we're going through everything. And then I tell her the price. And this was at the very beginning, so the cost back then was different than what it is now. It was only $50 a session. And she was like, I can't afford it. And I was like, okay, fair. I'm not going to pressure you, but, you know, you told me your story and it sounds like you have a lot going on. Would you be open to us going through your finances, seeing what we can do, and if we can figure out a solution for you to be able to afford this, we'll do the coaching together. And if not, good luck. I wish you the absolute best. Come back to me when you can afford it. And she goes, okay, yeah, I'm comfortable with that. So I'm like, okay. Emilia. And she tells this story all the time. Like, she opens up about this because she's a coach now. So she opens up about this story all the time. We went through her finances, $100 a week getting her nails done. Hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month on going out and partying and alcohol and food and subscriptions and shopping. She was spending like $3,000-$4,000 a month on bullshit.
Woof.
And on bullshit. Thousands of dollars. She didn't even realize it. We calculated all of it. Her jaw hit the floor and she goes, I didn't even realize I was spending that much money. And I was like, nobody knows they're spending that much money. So needless to say, we started working together after that because she was like, oh shit, I can afford this, but I got to update my lifestyle. And we did, and we worked together for a couple of years. And when she and I first started working together, she was a hot mess. And she's the first one to say it. In and out of really maladaptive relationships. She had a drinking problem. She was binge eating. She was really struggling in her interpersonal relationships. And she just had very low self-worth and very low self-belief. By the time that she and I ended working together and to now, she owns her own business. She's making 6+ figures a year in her own business. She lives in Florida with a partner of hers full time, and they're building this really, really amazing life together. That was only 5 years. And that was actually only 2 years between when she and I first started working together and when she and I ended. And she actually started her business and was making money through her own business doing fitness and nutrition and health coaching.
Nice.
And she took and she credits me a lot, which I'm super grateful for, but she uses a lot of what we talked about in her business with her clients.
That's awesome.
Imagine what would have happened to her if she just firmly in that moment believed, nope, sorry, I can't afford this, and then never started working with me. And the long-term costs of that one irrational decision and what that would have done to her life and her future. And she said it. She would have stayed an alcoholic. She probably would have gotten pregnant accidentally, not wanting to. Her life would have been an absolute mess. Everyone in her family would stay unhealthy because she then helped her parents to lose a lot of weight and to get healthy.
That's
she
awesome.
wouldn't be anywhere where she is now. One decision, one intelligent decision impacted her entire future and her entire trajectory. This is what I want to have a dialogue with or about today. And this is what we're going to be talking about today for all of you who are listening. How do you actually win? And how do you think long term? How do you make smart, intelligent decisions that, yes, might be uncomfortable right now, like that client, but will significantly benefit your life and your future? Because, you and I both know we get messages every day from people saying the exact same thing. I want therapy, but I can't afford it. I want therapy, but I can't afford it. I want to work with you guys, but I can't afford it. But we see them on social media buying this and doing this and spending this and engaging in this. And it's like, you can't afford it or you don't want to afford it. Because there's a huge difference in that. And this isn't just about finances, but this is about the decision and the thought behind choices. So I'm gonna rack it. What's the term? Volley this over to you. What are your thoughts on that? Because you know the math behind this way more than I do. But why is it so hard for people, from your perspective, to make those really good long-term decisions like my client had the courage to do so?
Yeah. First of all, good on ya. That's amazing. And good on her.
You can tell Emilia's uncomfortable by that deep sigh.
Yeah. To be very fair and candid and just transparent, I have always been a long-term strategic thinker my whole life. And so I always struggled when my friends would do really impulsive things. And to this example, would make really impulsive decisions. And then they would play the victim card afterwards of like, why did this happen? And I struggled to have empathy in those moments. It's like, it's obviously you chose that. Like, that's why that happened. Like, A plus B equals C, or 1 plus 2 equals 3. Like, it's really not hard to do that math. But that was something that it was very interesting to socially observe growing up and developing, because I realized very quickly that very few people have learned the skill sets and have been taught and had models who really showcase the skill sets of strategic long-term thinking. And finances is a great area that really does highlight that. You know, if we were to look at people's expense or sport reports, itemized receipts, et cetera, finances really do share where and how impulsive someone really can be. And that's a great example. And I liken this to, as anyone who's been joining this podcast, I'm a god, and I have been taught and learned and really, really find so much joy in gardening. And it's like we're so wired to just seek that instant gratification. We really are. And instant gratification is, it feels so good to have, like, honestly, people love spending money. People love spending money. People love spending time. People love spending energy. Like, we love, as human beings, like, love spending our stuff, like our resources. You don't believe me, just look at how good it feels when you receive something that you've given money to, be it the shoes, be it the purses, be it the bags, be it the estates, be it the I don't know, technology that you get, be it anything, right? The bars, the this, the that, the other thing. And we love it because of what it brings to us. And so when we have this opportunity to receive those happy, good feels and choose that, that's going to happen right now over choosing, kind of spending or investing in money that doesn't actually have any output. It's like the garden analogy is I've been doing something this year very differently than last year. And that one thing is every single weekend I take and I plant seeds. And the goal was so that, because last year it was noticeable that last year when I didn't have flowers on my deck, I have this rear deck that looks out to a bunch of woods, and it was noticeable, and it kind of felt naked during the summer months that I didn't have any flowers out there. Like, what the heck? Like, I want this to be like a sweet little bungalow that really is a really glimmer in between my days that I can go out to and kind of just take a breath of fresh air. And so one of the things that I told myself is that what we're going to do differently this year is during the winter months, we're going to prepare so that very early spring, we are every single weekend planting a plant so that the entire summer, right, because they're titrated, you have flowers from the very beginning of spring to the end of September. So plants, flowers, etc. And you don't have a time that you're going to go in your back deck and not see those beautiful flowers and get that joy that you really, really love. And I liken this to, instead, every single weekend, I am planting those seeds. I'm watering that dirt for probably a month or so, every single day, just looking at dirt, saying maybe today is going to be the day that I see that cute little plant peek its head out, or maybe I see that little seedling start to like come out. And for the first freaking 3 weeks, you don't see anything. So there's no joy, quote unquote. And I really think that, well, I know that most people do not know how to find joy or how to, quote unquote, extract meaning out of just simply watering the dirt, because they don't see what is happening below the soil. And to use this analogy when it comes to our finances, when we exchange money or when we make a decision that happens in the now, and we don't really have a concept of what or when, we're uncertain as to what the gratification is going to be and how long into the future we're going to receive that, it doesn't make sense to our brains when all we've been doing and all we know is to spend money, spend our time, spend our energy right here, right now, because right now is what we have control over.
I think I don't just want to talk about money. We're going to talk about relationships and other decision-making paradigms, and then how do you actually become a 1% thinker, and how do you actually make really good decisions. But I think a lot of people might hear you say that, and they're going to say, okay, but Emilia, the thing is, everybody knows that if you water a plant, something is going to come. I have no certainty that whatever this thing is that I'm doing, that it is going to get me some sort of outcome. I don't know that this is going to get me the result that I want. Yeah. And in all honesty, you're right. You're right. You have no idea. And that is true. Especially if you don't have people around you in your life that are also making very intelligent decisions that you can model off of and say, oh, this person did this thing, they did it long enough, they got a positive outcome. If they could do it, I can do it too. A lot of people don't have that because a lot of people aren't super conscious about the people that they're spending time with. And I think another huge aspect of this as well is It's not that we're just seeking short-term gratification, it's that we're avoiding pain.
Yeah.
People are so afraid of making the wrong decision that they just won't make a decision at all. It's like, I'm afraid to do the wrong thing, so I'm just not going to do anything. And I know that me spending my money on this, or me staying with this partner, or me not going to my boss and having a difficult conversation, I know that me doing this thing that I'm doing, I'm at least safe here. So let me not rock the boat. Let me not put effort into something that I have no certainty is actually going to get me a positive outcome. In fact, it's probably actually going to cause me pain. How, from your perspective, and I've helped a lot of clients do this over the last, honestly, really the last couple of weeks, because I'm trying to be more courageous in my coaching and like talk about more things. But I'm doing a lot of like strategic thinking with clients of mine and showing them how to do that. But from your perspective, how do people start to understand, how do you know you're making, how do you pick an outcome? How do you decide what the right things are to do? And how do you do it long enough to see the efforts have a payoff? Because again, anyone can understand that I can water this patch of dirt, and if I put a seed in there, eventually it'll grow. But I'm not certain that leaving my partner is going, that I'm scared shitless to leave here because I don't want to be alone. I'm not certain that leaving this person is then going to allow me to do that healing inner work, to then find a new partner, to then have a good relationship.
One of the things that I found to be helpful for clients that are in that, we'll just say, readiness phase, if you will, to begin actual implementation of change. So they're out of that pre-consideration stage where they're like going back and forth with the idea that they actually realize this pain is not going to go away. It's just going to come back. Has been to kind of map out how their escapism mindset is preventing them. It's like the glass ceiling from starting to take a little bit more of a leap of faith, if you will. And you and I have talked about this in group coaching and one-on-one settings, and also in Out of the Mud, our free live virtual event that we host every single month, where in the growth journey, anyone that's trying to change anything, anyone that's trying to improve themselves, get on their evolved journey, there's this old world, which is what you've been doing, what has kept you stuck, what has kept you from keeping and or making long-term strategic decisions or making better decisions. Just in a nutshell, they don't even have to be long-term, right? That's old world. There's so many ideas, thoughts, and people's, i.e. belief structures, that are supporting this quote unquote mindset that you have. And what you just touched upon that, which is that escapism mindset. It is, how can I avoid pain, or how can I avoid anything that's unpleasant? And that is the mindset that keeps people in old world, because there's no opening mindset wise towards what is really what I refer to as the experimental mindset. And the experimental mindset, or the scientist mindset, is, hey, pain isn't the worst thing. As a matter of fact, we can actually look at it from a scientific perspective, noting that pain and unpleasantness and the discomfort is actually what's going to be really helpful for us to start experimenting with certain things. So again, I have no idea, based on the seeds, right, that I'm putting in the dirt, I have no idea when they're actually going to sprout. Generally takes 2 to 4 weeks, right? Like, okay, that's a kind of big window. When you're leaving your partner, generally things will get better, but you don't know when, you don't know how, right? So there's uncertainty that's there, which puts us at a discomfort. But when we have that experimental mindset, or we have that scientific mindset, we understand that our inputs, and this is also related to systems thinking, our inputs, i.e. what we do to try to get whatever goal we aspire to, which is that leap of faith, that willingness to do a little bit different of your input. So maybe water the grass over here, or maybe try to experiment with the thought of leaving your partner, what those conversations would look like, right? That one input that you do differently, or maybe not spending money when you're friends and you go out to the bar, maybe actually just getting a water, like, or something like that. Your input, your action towards improving and going into lonely land or new world, that leap of faith is quite literally shifting your mindset around actions you take and not take. And so you shift out of that escapism mindset and you shift into more of that, okay, I know that there's going to be uncertainty. I know there's going to be discomfort with that uncertainty. And I know you make the quote unquote unknowns a known. And as a result of that, you can then go through that experimental mindset that goes input, output. Let's measure, okay, how did we do here? How did this feel on us? And then adjust. It's not how do we make sure that we're locking and hanging so deeply on certainty that if the outputs or if things happen, we are distraught and destroyed by the outcome. It starts far more looking at trying to make little small steps, little micro actions, and then having a different narrative around what that is. At least in my experience, that has been helpful to kind of open up the chasm for someone who has had an escapism mindset, just avoiding all pain and pleasure initially.
Can you dive into actual tangibles though? Because
yeah,
it makes sense from a theoretical standpoint, but like,
yep.
Me back in the day, if you would have said that to me, I would have been like, I don't understand what the hell I'm supposed to do.
For sure.
How do you actually go from pre-contemplation, which is the beginning stages of any journey where you don't even know you're struggling, you don't even know there's an issue, to the contemplation stage, and then the actual action and readiness stage of like, okay, I know I have a problem. I know there's things I need to fix. I know that I'm struggling. Okay, now let me take a step. How do you go from pre-contemplation to then the experimenter or the scientist mindset? What's a really practical, tangible thing in small ways that people can start doing this? Because what a lot of people will do, and a lot of my clients will say, I don't actually know how to do that in a small way. How do I actually do that on the day-to-day? I'm in so much pain. I don't feel like a small, tangible thing is actually going to do anything. But again, it's the small steps that build up to the big thing that then lead to the big change. So how do people actually transition into that experimenter or scientist mindset?
I know with every single client of mine, at least, it's been a little bit more nuanced and different. But I would say, actually, I got an audio from a client this morning, her kind of reporting back to me out of her own vocation and excitement, because yesterday we had talked about something that was helping her do this. And we really focused in on, it's a ladder, right? We got to take baby steps, and we got to do so when it's a low pressure situation. And just to kind of frame the context a little bit. So she tends to find herself in this belief that I can't do things on my own, right? Like that's just a general belief that she's held, that we talked about yesterday, her culture has reinforced. And yesterday I had essentially shared with her, because she was really open to it. She's like, like I really want to actually like pay attention to what you're saying now. I'm like, okay, so this whole time you haven't been paying attention? She's like, no, but like, to be honest, I've been a little distracted, and like, I get really nervous. And so I'm like, okay, what is happening is your central nervous system, she's starting to like really shut down. You're starting to really even shut down. And so you're not really paying attention to some of these things that could be really helpful for you. And we had kind of worked through some of the things, and none of this, when someone hears this, might sound connected. So that will make sense. But I said, are you open to doing an experiment? Because what we're realizing is that your central nervous system, she's so dysregulated. And why is that? One of the reasons that we got got to is because she has this cognitive script that is like the social belonging script that's running her. That is, I need to go from one thing to the next thing. And if I don't do this, then, and it kind of back pressures this like needing to rush, which is keeping her central nervous system in this flight mode. I need to go to one thing to the next thing to the other thing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, well, today, what are you going to feel like you're rushing to? And she's like, which just before I say that, because of this central nervous system dysregulation, she is always making impulsive decisions without even like full conscious awareness. And so she's living currently in this life of like realizing how impulsive she's been and hadn't really felt as though she could make some of these practical changes. And so I said, okay, let's really wind things down. Where are you going to be quote unquote rushing? i.e., what is already externally committed to? She's like, oh, okay, well, I have a pedicure and then I'm going to go get dinner with Jasmine or something, whatever. And I'm like, okay, just those two things. You've already committed to the nail salon that you're going to be there to get a pedicure. And you've already committed to Jasmine that you're going to be there and have drinks with her a half hour after this nail salon appointment. And she's like, yeah, right. And I'm like, okay, is there any possibility that this back pressure of this part of you that really feels like she needs to rush through and get from point A to point B, that's going to pop up? And she's like, oh, definitely. Yeah. Because like and then she started going into the logistics of how far apart they were and how she's going to have to rush to her car after a nail appointment. I'm like, good. That's a great example because ultimately it's low pressure. In contrast to her entire week, her part is going into this back pressuring of you need to rush through and you need to make all these decisions. And I said, in that moment right now, you are open to change. And I said, are you willing to instead avoid this like, oh my God, I'm going to let Jasmine down or all of these narratives, to actually experimenting with your central nervous system and asking yourself just for a moment before you rush into your car and put on your seatbelt and start flying, are you open to literally just walking slower to your car? Like we started so small because of the fact that what we learned with her is that even just her pace, like she moves so fast. And I said on a practical level, I said, okay, in that, I want you counting your steps. I want you counting the seconds between your steps. And that forced her on a practical level to actually focus in on slowing down. And what that slowing down contributed to was her central nervous system literally in real time relieving herself of that back pressure in order to go quote unquote be with her friend, allowed her impulse control to be wrapped around because her breathing slowed down in her counting, and that breathing slowed down allowed her prefrontal cortex to come back online and say, honestly, we don't actually have to be rushing right now, or I don't need to go get to Jasmine. I can send her a text and say that I'm running late. And she reported this morning, she's like, oh my God, this experiment that we've been doing, like I actually got a flat tire on the way to the nail salon. And so like this and this and this, all these things happen. And it was really beautiful to hear in the audio because of the fact that she used just that tiny practical application of counting how many seconds between her steps. Like that one tiny practical shift of attention plus the priming of, okay, we're going to experiment. There's not necessarily going to be an expected outcome, but rather we're focusing and shifting in on, we know that there's going to be discomfort. We know your typical patterns. We know that there's uncertainty here. And we know that you can do things on your own. So that tiny little thing, like I said, it's context, it's nuance to the person. But that tiny little thing made a big difference just in the last 12 hours.
How does someone do that on their own accord if they don't have a therapist currently? Like, how does someone actually start to develop longer term thinking in their present life? Like, what's a question that they can start asking themselves? What's a prompt? What's a journal entry that they can do? What is something that people can start doing today to be able to go from what your client was doing, making impulsive choices where she didn't realize the long-term outcomes of her choices, to eventually being able to understand, if I do this in a month or in 3 months or in 6 months, this is what's going to happen. How can people start today on their own accord if you are not there or if I am not there?
Yeah, one great one, because we are such social creatures, is think about the person that you know that has the best impulse control. They're likely the most successful, most fulfilled, most in love person that you know. Their success has come as a result of their strategic decision making, to name just one thing. So think of that person and ask yourself, what would this person do if he were in my shoes right now? And that's a really quick hack to try to start to adhere to what you believe their decision making is. And ultimately, it would delay yours. So even just that thought experiment, like, that's so big, because you're literally trying to hack and trying to contemplate, what does this person do that's different than mine? And just because of that, you're defusing with your thought process. And so aside from that, what another thing that people can do for this, outside of, actually getting someone to support and help them, aside from that social component, would be literally, like, when you have an impulse to want to do something, want to buy something, want to spend money on something, write it down or keep it. Like, this is one thing that's been actually really fun to experiment with clients is, if you see something, right, people are going to be scrolling. I'm not naive to that. If you see something that's a product that you really love, go ahead and to help remove that impulse on Instagram. Let's just say you find something really, really cool. There is a folder that I keep myself, and I've also encouraged other clients to keep this. There's, like, how you can, like, save certain reels or certain things on Instagram. Same thing with Facebook. You can create a folder to save that product to your quote unquote cool products I think I want to buy playlist or folder. Then the rule is to not go back in there unless and until you have sat on it for a day, and see if you ever go back to that, because you're literally creating a separation from the impulse to making anything a impact, essentially. Because if you were to spend that $100 on those cute shoes that you saw that fitness model wear, you just saved yourself $100 just by doing that, saying, oh, I'll come back to this later. That's so freaking helpful in those little things, be it the products, be it, you want to have a drink right now and you're at the bar with your friends. Okay, I'm just going to go talk to this friend at the back of the bar, or I'm going to do a lap around the bar. Whatever it is, you want to delay from impulse to actually impact. B, I have been talking on this whole thing, and I want to get your perspective, and I want the listeners to get your perspective too.
One thing I want to say to that first point that you made, be very careful, because some people develop their success through what my mother calls balutam basmar. It means bullshit. It's Arabic. I don't know. There's no translation for it. It's just shenanigans through bullshit.
Love it.
There's a lot of people on social media who are driving beautiful cars and have nice houses who their parents bought it for them, or they got it through external means, or their success they bought. So make sure that the person that you're saying, what would they do, is actually credible and built their success from tangible means. Not for nothing.
Good character.
Use us as an example. I do that all the time. You guys, all right, I'm going to call myself out really hard for a second, okay? And I told Emilia this the other day. I bought Beats headphones, and they shit the bed. I went out for a walk with my dog. I made an unintelligent decision, and it was raining, and I had my headphones on. I was so pissed. And I was like, I just spent $200 on these freaking things, and now they are fried. And I spent a week trying to fix them because I was like, I'm not spending money on this. And I have other headphones, but they don't really work. And these ones don't really work, the ones that I'm using right now, but they're good enough for the podcast. So I'm like, God damn it, I have to buy a new pair of headphones. So I bought a new pair. They came in. And the only reason I bought them is because for the gym, like, the gym is a very important thing to me. My physical health is one of my top 3 priorities. So getting a good workout in is a long-term benefit. So it is an intelligent decision for me to have good headphones to fuel my workouts. There's 1,000 reasons why it's a good reason. So it was a good decision for me. So the headphones come in, and I know a lot of people do this, where it's like, I bought the same headphones. What I could do is put the old ones in the box and return it and be like, it didn't work. And I know a lot of people do that, and I'm just the one that's going to say that I was going to do it. And I literally had the thought in my head. I was like, is this the person that I want to be? Because it was an impulsive thought. It was an intrusive thought. We all get them.
Yeah, what can I get away with?
It was an intrusive thought. And I was like, can I get away with this? Probably. And then I literally said, what would Emilia do? And how would I feel if I had to look Emilia in the eye and tell her I did this? And my heart sank to the pit of my stomach. And I was like, nope, I will not do that. So even me sitting here on this podcast, I do that. I say, what would Emilia do? What would my mentor do? What would the best version of me do in this scenario? And that's my higher self coming out. So one of my impulsive parts was like, hey, we don't have to spend the money. And then my higher self came out and was like, B, you wouldn't be able to look yourself in the eye.
Yeah.
Long-term decision. It would have been a short-term win financially for a long-term massive self-respect hit if I were to have done that. And people do that shit all the time. So I'm not the first one. But when it comes to long-term intelligent decision making, so yes, number one, think of other people, right? What would this person do? What would that person do? Have role models. Role models are so important. They really are. Here's what I have clients do. And this is a thought experiment that I've had a lot of clients do. And they'll come back to me and they were like, us doing this just saved me in this situation. It helped me to do this. It got me out of pain here. So I want to walk you guys through this thought experiment that I use, that I've had clients use, and it works, and it doesn't require another person. Think of the situation that you are entering into. So I had a client do this. He was entering into a difficult conversation with his soon-to-be ex-wife. And he's like, I am nervous about this conversation. I'm really scared that this is going to happen, and I don't want this to be a massive blowout. I said, okay, cool. I'm going to guide you through 3 questions. I want you to jot this down, and I want you to answer this for yourself. Number 1, what is the worst case scenario? So you're going to go into this situation. What is the absolute worst case scenario of what's going to happen? He wrote it down. I said, okay, cool. What is the best case scenario? Absolute best case scenario. You go into the situation. What would the most amazing outcome be? Did that. I said, okay, what is the most probable? So given the 2 extremes, what's the most realistic? He wrote it out. I said, okay, cool. Now what I want you to do is I want you to go in there, go back to your questions, and say, okay, if the absolute worst case scenario were to happen, how would I want to handle it? So he went in there and he wrote out, okay, I would do this, I would do this, I would do this, and I would do this. I was like, cool. If the best case scenario were to happen, why would that have happened? What would you have done that led it to be the absolute best case scenario? This, and this. Cool. Same thing with the most probable. Doing that allows you to stop, to pause, to think about what your fears are, what you want, and how to actually get there. So it shows you that I am in control of outcomes because I can control what I do, and I can predict what might happen and eliminate my fears that are stopping me from making a decision. If you can let yourself do that, it'll allow you to stop before you make choices, to really think it through, and then to make better choices moving forward. And if you do that enough times, you can do that more long term. Like, when I first met Emilia, I was not a long-term thinker at all. I couldn't think a day ahead, let alone a week, a month, 6 months, a year, whatever. And this is exactly what I did with that client that I referenced in the beginning, to where she went from everything was an impulse decision to her being able to own, operate, and run her own business and help hundreds of other people live really fulfilling lives. So, this, just like anything else, it's a skill. Learning how to be an intelligent thinker, learning how to win, learning how to play the long game, it's a skill. And you start where you are. But if you're consistently running away from fear and from discomfort because choosing the easier option is easier now, you're never going to show yourself that you're actually capable of doing, having, and becoming everything that you're trying to be, do, have, and become.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a really important skill. And on that note, the 1% of people that so many people look up to, it's not that they don't have fears, right? And that their absence, like they don't have fears. It's how they actually work through and partner with those fears in order to ensure exactly what they want. That's what they do extremely different, because that's where the strategic thinking comes in. That's where the influence of certain inputs and outcomes come in, and the reverse engineering, the systems thinking. And it's such an impactful quality, right? The ability to influence your thoughts, influence your state, influence everything that is within your control, and then see what is just quote unquote beyond your belief of what's within your control, and then realize like you can actually influence that too, to a degree. So fascinating episode, Bianca. Thank you for sharing that. I am going to close with that thought and with my episode suggestion, 405, how parents emotionally trap you without realizing it.
Mine is 379. What is your go-to shame response? If you want to make a really good long-term decision that is going to help your life succeed, we are launching group coaching round 3. It is starting July 24th. July 24th. We've had clients who have done this program come back to us and say this was hands down the best decision that they ever made. It was way more affordable than they thought. It didn't require as much effort as they thought. And it really allowed them to learn about themselves and to break some of the patterns that are keeping them stuck, and really helped them to make long-term sustainable changes in their life that are going to make their life so much better. So if that is something that you are interested in, if that is something that you want to be a part of, please send us a DM or go to our website. All of the information is on there. You can pre-register. It is going to be a phenomenal group, and you're going to be in there with 9 other people who want to do the same exact thing. So send us a DM. I want to make sure that you get your spot, so do it soon. And we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.